Listen, if you're living in Africa or coming from Africa, I know that this video will hit hard for you because there are so many obstacles that come our way when we want to try to better our lives. There are even more obstacles when it comes to tech and building software or even apps. So the topic of learning to code, particularly in Africa, will always raise eyebrows. Why do we even bother learning to code whereas there are so many other problems that need to be solved? Why is this even a discussion point? Coding, after all, is globally recognized, but in Africa, learning to code is a very big deal for several reasons. So in this video, I will share the obstacles I faced and I'll tell you exactly how I did to overcome them. So this will hopefully inspire you to keep on with your journey and maybe help you improve overall. So the first obstacle I faced was electricity. So should I even explain this? If you know, you know. I've always considered Africa as a country because despite the fact that we live in different places which have different names, we all face the same underlying issues. I was living in Cameroon, but I'm very sure that my brothers in Nigeria, Ghana, and many other African countries face the same issue. So this electricity issue is an ongoing issue and it has hindered a lot of people from learning their tech skills. And this was also an obstacle for me, but it didn't stop me from learning. Every single day there will basically be random power outages, and while having a laptop was quite helpful, it wasn't really a game changer because the outages will often last for several hours. And my laptop's battery life was probably lasting like 1 to 2 hours, so that wasn't really all that much. So what I would do to overcome this was that I would look at the hours in the days where there was hardly power outages in my area. And for me, it was between midnight and 6 a.m. So every single day, I would set my alarm and wake up every night from 11 p.m. and code or study for school till like 4 or 5 a.m. Sometimes the people who control the power were smart enough to seize the power at 3 a.m. so that I shouldn't study. But I'll outsmart them by waking up early and still getting something done till like 3 a.m. And if the power goes out again, I know that I've coded or studied for school for even 1 or 2 hours. Because the main thing about me was that I should be at least consistent and do the work every single day and not only put in the same amount of time every single day. So the outages wasn't really a deal breaker because I found a way to overcome it. The second obstacle was internet. If you're watching this video from a developed country or a semi-developed country, this may sound very crazy because internet is nearly unlimited for you. But for us in Africa, while internet is quite accessible, it is quite on the expensive side. We basically pay internet in bits. For example, we mostly have the option to buy only limited data plans, and getting unlimited data plans is very expensive. Despite the pricing, someone who can even afford to also pay for internet will also face other issues like unstable internet connection. At least in Cameroon, internet used to have random outages. These weren't very significant outages like the electricity outages. If you're watching a video trying to stream a video, that is quite an issue. So to solve this internet issue, I was able to convince my dad to pay for my internet every single month. Since I studied computer science, I really had to beg for him to put me extra internet monthly so I could watch tutorials and even stream my own videos. I know this may be considered as an unfair advantage as not everyone can just casually ask their dad to put them extra $30 worth of internet every single month. But at least I was able to convince my dad to put it for me. Maybe you can or you cannot, but you can always find a way to overcome any internet issues that may be hindering you from learning how to code. That is how I did mine, and I'm very happy my dad was able to provide an extra $30 for an additional data plan for me to always be able to learn with internet. One downside of this was that I could only use it while I was at home. And when I say at home, it was in my little university room. And this was because it was like a fixed modem. I could not really go out with it. But it was also convenient because it helped me save on my data plan without wasting everything browsing mindlessly while being on the road or being in class or something like that. So I could only work while I was at home, and this was very, very convenient to me because after all, I don't really like studying in public or coding in public. I prefer coding at home and doing all the work at home. The third obstacle I faced was simply lack of support. I think this problem can be found in every part of the world, but the thing is, in Africa, it's mostly amplified. When I started learning how to code, I was like 12 years old. My parents didn't even know what coding was about. They didn't think I could ever get a job with it because at the time, none of their friends were really having jobs with programming or thanks to programming. So they saw it like something which was like a dead end and something that I was just doing for fun. whereas I was really passionate about it, and I really like doing it. I also have 3 brothers and none of them were interested, so I always found myself alone, feeling crazy at times, and I even gave up several times just because of how lonely it were. When you're doing something alone and you have no one to support you, and when I even say support, I don't mean financial support, I just mean like just someone with whom you can work, who can motivate you, it's really difficult to keep going. And if you're doing something in this life with people, you really need to cherish it, because it is a privilege to have people with whom you can share your passion. But anyways, the way I was able to overcome this obstacle was to start admiring people who were further away from me, but who had accomplished a lot of things. For example, people like Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates were my real source of inspiration, and they were the people I always look up to when I want to get like motivation, when I want to be motivated. I really want to have reasons to keep doing what I love doing. I just kept looking on to these people, what they had built, how game-changing it were. And at the time, I was a big user of Facebook. I absolutely loved Facebook, and I was always fascinated by the fact that it was a young adult who actually built it. So that always fascinated me, and that's what really kept me going, because I told myself that one day I too will be able to build something like that. And the first thing I did when I started really getting the hang of coding was to build an app, because that had always been what I'd look up to. That's always been what I really wanted to do. So yeah, that's how I did to overcome the problem of lack of support. So if you can't find support around you, create a mental support for yourself and just stick with it. So the 4th obstacle was not knowing what to learn. Now, this obstacle is actually what gets most people stuck. They want to learn how to code, but they don't know where to start. They don't know what resources are relevant, because not all resources are. And they get stuck with too many options and never seem to find a clear learning path. Not to say the least, I was like this for a very long time. And to overcome this, I decided to take a structured course that helped me focus on exactly what I needed to learn, especially when it came to mastering front-end development, mobile application development, and ultimately learning back-end frameworks. The course provided a very clear path, starting from the basics of HTML and CSS, and then moving over to JavaScript, and then there was a 10-hour lesson or a 10-hour course on React.js. This really helped me a whole bunch to get started with React.js, practice a whole bunch, and start building my own project. For the backend, I still took a course, but this time was on Java and the Spring Boot framework. And not to say the least, I learned a lot, because I ended up building a project which I ultimately published on the App Store. And right now, I'm no longer maintaining that project, but it helped me learn a whole bunch. So this structured course was exactly what I needed to break free from the confusion and overwhelming number of options. Because if you just type on Google right now, learn how to code or how to code, you will see over 10,000 resources. But which one do you choose? So by following a set curriculum, I was able to gain a solid understanding of both front-end and back-end technologies, which ultimately allowed me to build my own real-world applications confidently. And now the final obstacle that I faced, and most people faced, was balancing coding with other endeavors. One of the biggest difficulties I had to face was finding time to code and time to do my homework and ultimately prepare for exams. In Africa, many people, including myself, have to balance education, family duties, and sometimes even working part-time jobs just to make ends meet. Coding requires long hours of focus and practice, often had to compete with these daily demands. To overcome this, I had to be very intentional about managing my time. I set aside specific hours during the day for coding, which were usually very late at night, like 11 p.m. or very early in the morning, like 2 a.m. to like 6 a.m., when I knew I could focus without any interruptions. And this approach ultimately allowed me to slowly but steadily build my skills without falling behind on other important parts of my life. So I was basically able to learn how to code for like 2 to 3 hours and also study for exams for another 2 to 3 hours. And I know this involves spending a lot of time studying overall, but you have to be able to sacrifice to reach your goals. So at the end of the day, the key is really to be consistent. Despite all these obstacles, the main thing I maintained was consistency. And being consistent will take you through all obstacles you can ever think of. So even though you don't spend the same amount of time doing what you love doing or learning how to code every single day, just the fact that you're able to get something done every single day will take you a long way. You can't even imagine how it's going to take you a long way. So being consistent was always at the forefront, whether it snowed, whether it rained, whether there was sun, whether there was lava, or whether my house was burning. I made sure to study, I made sure to code every day, and I never missed a day for like a whole year until I started really feeling comfortable writing code, building my own application. So yeah, I really hope all what we covered in this video was helpful, and if you're facing any challenges currently, know that you're not the only person facing these challenges. Other people have faced those challenges and have found ways to overcome them. So never feel like a victim, never feel like your situation is only unique to yourself, and know that there is a solution to every single problem you are currently facing. So if this video was helpful for you, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and hopefully see you in the next video.